Do you know what I love about Android phones? It's the choice. And I know a lot of you will love your iPhones and your Samsung Galaxy phones, but there is a new player in town. Have you heard of Aiku? Well, it's 2022, and if you don't know, you had better get to know, because Aiku is kind of a big deal. In fact, Aiku is a sub-brand of Vivo, and Vivo are one of the top 5 smartphone manufacturers in the world. And in 2021, Vivo even held the #1 spot for smartphone sales in China. And you might be wondering, why is Vivo and Aiku so popular in the East? And if you're from the East, let me know in the comments what you think of Aiku as a brand. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Well, here's what I think. It could be because the tech specifications on their devices are pretty incredible, and the iQoo 9 Pro is a perfect example of this. We're talking about a flagship grade 2K E5 120Hz AMOLED LTPO 2.0 display from the well-known Korean manufacturer. You might have heard of them, Samsung. And this flagship display has the ability to slow down all the way to 1 Hz refresh rate and speed all the way up to a rapid 120 Hz refresh rate when needed. That right there is the perfect balance of speed, power, and performance. And when it comes to the shooters, it has a triple camera array with a 50 megapixel GN5 primary camera sensor. And this is the first smartphone to have this sensor. And guess what? That primary camera has been created in collaboration with Samsung. And of course, Vivo have thrown in some of their own expertise in the form of their class-leading gimbal stabilization system. So the camera lens is literally floating on top of that camera sensor. And iQoo say there's a monster inside the iQoo 9 Pro, and I believe they're referring to the most powerful chipset to ever grace an Android smartphone to date, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 from the American company Qualcomm. And think of this as the brains behind the brawn of the device. It delivers a better CPU performance than last year's flagships, better graphics, better signals, better data speeds, better audio, better AI, and better camera AI, and so much more. And in fact, the iQoo 9 Pro is so slick that the German car manufacturer BMW have put their M Motorsport branding on it. And you've got to know, BMW would never do this unless it's been really well built. And it has. The iQoo 9 Pro has a full metal body with amazing attention to detail. Even the charging port has a rhodium ruthenium alloy coating to it, making it extremely abrasion resistant and durable. It does have a curved Gorilla Glass Victus windshield on the front, and on the back it has a BMW M Sport inspired finish in the form of DuPont Kevlar fibers weaved into it just below the surface of the matte finished Gorilla Glass. And I must say, it feels nice, it looks awesome, and it's also got Go Faster stripes down the back. And you'll also notice the camera bump is unusual. The glass reaches right across the back for no apparent reason, and I must say it does kind of feel like iQoo are foreshadowing maybe a selfie viewfinder in future models of the iQoo phone. But at this point in time, it's mainly for aesthetics, but there is one purpose to it, which might have been unintentional. It does reduce camera wobble when the phone is resting on a flat surface. So here's what we got so far. It's a premium design. It's got a high quality flagship screen. It's got powerful processing cores and some serious tech behind the cameras. But what good is it without power? Well, I think you're going to like this bit. It has a 4,700 milliamp hour battery inside, which is slightly larger than the S22 Plus's battery, which is a similar size phone with a similar chipset. But this phone, the iQoo 9 Pro, can go from 0 to 50% in just 6 minutes. And it can go from 0 to 100% in under 20 minutes. And guess what? There's a 120 watt charger in the box. And this charger is a heavyweight, and I mean that quite literally, because if you threw it, it could knock out a koala. And it's also worth noting, a lot of laptops these days will charge with 120 watt chargers, which makes this charger even more useful. But it gets better. The iQoo 9 Pro can also charge wirelessly at 50 watts if you happen to have the right Qi wireless charger. Now, I think you must admit, this is impressive, especially when you consider the competition. The iPhone 13 Pro Max maxes out at just 27 watts charging speeds, and the S22 Ultra tops out at 45 watts. And those are the charging speeds using a wire. Now I know what you're thinking, 120 watts fast charging via the wire or 50 watts fast charging via a Qi wireless charger is going to generate some heat. But like De Niro said in that movie that I can't remember the name of, don't get yourself into anything that you can't walk out of in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner. And iQoo have certainly done this, because the iQoo 9 Pro has many corners because this extremely advanced liquid cooling chamber has been folded 18 times. And in fact, if you were to unfold this vapor cooling chamber, it would be the same size as an A4 piece of paper. And interestingly enough, the iQoo 9 Pro does use dual charging tech and 6C battery cells that have an MTW array electrode structure. But what does that even mean? Well, it means it can charge incredibly fast without exploding or overheating. So it can charge fast and do it safely. Now, I don't want to bore you guys to death by just reading off the spec sheet. Instead, I'd rather share with you some of the standout features that I personally like on the iQoo 9 Pro. For example, this has Qualcomm's 3D Sonic Max fingerprint scanner, which is 9 times larger than the previous version. And for those not familiar with this tech, sonic fingerprint scanning is by far superior to optical fingerprint scanning. And this one is in fact the fastest in the world, and it unlocks in just 0.2 seconds. And as I mentioned, the surface area is far larger than before. But what this does is it introduces a new feature, and that is 2-finger simultaneous authentication. And that means the biometric unlock method can be twice as secure. And if you thought 3D face unlock was good, this is better. So what you can do with this is you can actually put sensitive apps like banking apps or crypto apps into a private folder that can only be unlocked with this double authentication unlock method. Also, that larger scanning area can be used to quick launch and unlock the phone simultaneously by dragging an app onto the fingerprint scanner, and you can customize what apps you want to have here. Something else that stands out to me on this phone is the gimbal system. It's incredible. So if you enjoy shooting videos on the move, you will really appreciate this feature more than most. And that gimbal feature is not just for video, it'll actually allow you to stabilize photos as well if you're doing a longer exposure or something like that. And it can shoot 8K video, which kind of is the future. So it's nice that it can do that as well. And whilst the primary camera really is the star of the show, the ultra wide is actually very impressive as well. It can shoot 150 degrees, and that is far wider than the 120 degrees that we see on most other flagships. And behind it is another 50 megapixel sensor. A lot of other phones will use much smaller sensor sizes for the ultra wide. And of course, I should give an honorable mention to the other two cameras. The telephoto, we can max out at 30x zoom, and the 16 megapixel selfie camera, which is respectable. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you're into iPhones and Samsung Galaxy phones, it's hard to switch to a new manufacturer. And I guess one of the main concerns is, am I going to have to learn a new operating system from scratch? Well, the answer to this is no, not really, because the iQoo 9 Pro runs on Android 12 with the Fun Touch OS skin over the top, which makes it incredibly similar to Samsung's One UI. And it also makes it similar to Apple's iOS, especially when you switch on the gesture navigations and you use the widgets, which are similar to iOS stacks, but way more customizable and actually far superior in my opinion. So you can make the iQoo look and feel just like a Samsung phone and just like an iPhone if you want to. So this is the first iQoo device I've ever reviewed, and on paper the specs are top of the line, and like all things tech, there is room for improvement. For example, maybe a faster USB-C port or the addition of a second display next to the camera module. But in reality, when it comes to the look, feel and everyday use, whether it's work or play that you're using it for, my personal opinion is the iQoo 9 Pro, just like a BMW M sports car, is a beautiful machine, but inside, it's a monster. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. A thumbs up would make my day, a subscribe would make my month, and if you just did that, you are now one of the finest subscribers known to man. And I will see you guys in the next one, so don't be late.